That's a good boy. I wish I talked to computers like we talk to dogs. It's a good boy. Who's a good boy? He said, me.
I think it's almond. That's what it smells like. Or heat bar.
My nose is basically filled. My nose is like.
Well, it smells like cappuccino, so I'm just saying.
It's so sad. Case or us or no? I guess we should actually talk about this.
No, we should try to know it's not. I'm not one bit.
It's not.
Yeah, I'm tired. I'm tired of listening. Well, I do like when you talk about
Go
it
make some
though.
more coffee.
Yes.
Go get coffee.
No, you can go make it. We'll write the note for you. Whatever.
Now, someone's probably like, it's just so delicious and fun. It tastes like coconut. It's like,
Like, no, it's not fun.
What do you have? Like black coffee?
the thing is just like, I'm not one to flavor coffees. So the idea of like putting stuff in, it's like,
Foo-foo-y?
yeah, well, it's not just that. It's just like, why? It'd be like, I'm gonna make some iced tea. Let's put some ketchup in it. It's like, why? Why would you do that?
I don't know why people put egg and ketchup together. It just sounds.
I kind of understand that actually.
It sounds disgusting. I don't understand how it like blends.
Tomato and egg goes well together.
Oh yeah, they do.
That doesn't sound like they would.
Like when you have like a fried tomato or something like that. Not fried, but I mean like grilled or whatever.
Yeah, sure. Like you make an omelet or something.
Because some people had that for breakfast. It was on the menu when I was on the cruise. They had
Sure.
that.
The reason is that fats and acids go together. They're a complementary flavor. That's why if you think like like butter and lemon go together to make like certain pasta dishes, things like that. So
Or
they're
you
just
put
certain
on
combinations. Sure. Or crab for that matter.
Yeah, I love crab.
Anyways,
Crab days.
this is actually kind of short and to the point. So we're just talking about progression in India, farming, moving on to what's called the Green Revolution, which is not the same thing as like our Green Revolution. If you think our Green Revolution, it's think like, well, that's doing more green technologies, like more recycling, that sort of thing. Nothing to do with what we're talking about with this, the Green Revolution. This is about bringing farming equipment to India. Because if you think about it, the amount of technology we have when it comes to farming is just unbelievable. Consider this from a historical narrative. Do you guys know what the prime occupation was in the United States 100 years ago? What do most people do?
Farming.
And what percentage of the population today are farmers?
10.
6.
It's less than 10. I can tell you, last I think I checked, it was 2%. So let's put this in perspective. The amount of food produced by 2% of the population is enough to feed the entire world. If we wanted to, we could feed the world. We don't. And basically, it's economics. If we put too much food out there, the price goes way, way, way down, and farmers can't actually survive. So, in essence, we can, with technology, do this. We just don't. So, have fun with that knowledge. But going back to the technology thing, we are able to produce that much more. India has a population problem, as does China for that matter. And one of the problems with this is having enough food available to produce. So bringing in this technology, trying to revolutionize the farming industries, and lately, India's been pushing into manufacturing, industrialization, and then going to post-industrial economy. Now, as a general, I don't know if you guys have studied economies and the progression they make, but the general work like this. You have an economy that's based solely on farming. The next step is manufacturing. That's when you go through the industrial revolution. Step after that is a post-industrial economy. That's where we are now. Most people in the United States today don't make stuff for a living. They do stuff for other people. That's what you call a service industry. In essence, you don't buy something from this person. They don't like to make something in the factory and sell it to you. But rather, they do something that you could do on your own, but you really don't want. So, for instance, being a lawyer, right? You can hypothetically go into court and defend yourself in the event you're like in a lawsuit or something, but you probably don't want to because you don't know the law as well as someone who that's their only job is to know the law. So you hire someone who does it for you. A lot of things are like this with like blue collar work too. For instance, mechanics. You can do all your own car maintenance yourself. Most people don't know enough to do it, those that don't. See what I'm saying? That's doing something for you. That's post-industrial. Okay. So they're working towards getting to post-industrial. Today, life in India isn't really that different than many European nations. It's very similar to England in a lot of ways. The only thing is population density is higher in cities, for instance. So that does have an effect. Otherwise, they are a very powerful economy. They've been working for years to improve, and education has been more and more heavily stressed in it. India has really enjoyed a big boom in terms of, excuse me, I just need some, what is this, frog in my throat?
I know.
I mean, say is the standard of living is going up. Now, if you look at the average number of people, though, that wouldn't seem to be the case. For instance, most people in India, they tend to think of rural communities where people are poor and there's problems with sanitation and all this other kind of stuff. And the fact of the matter is that while that is certainly true, and a significant number of people have that experience in the cities and things like that, it's not quite so bad. As far as spoken languages, there are many throughout India. The largest, most commonly spoken group in India is Hindi. Though, of course, there's Farsi and any number of other different languages present there. So, for most intents and purposes, English is the most commonly spoken language. It's sort of the language. Yeah. 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 So, and of course, the reason behind that is because it was once the largest British colony. So, there's a lot of influence there, too. Of course, culturally speaking, movies have really taken off in India. I'm sure you guys are aware of that. Are you guys familiar with the term Bollywood?
Hollywood.
No, with a B.
No.
Okay. Hollywood, of course, is in the United States. In the city of Mumbai, which is formerly Bombay, that's where they kind of produce most of their movies. And India produces more movies per year than any other country on earth. Now that being said, America produces more expensive movies than pretty much anywhere else on earth. And because of that, they tend to be very popular as well. American movies are important all over the world. Particularly like the big blockbusters, like, oh my God, whenever Star Wars went out, you know, it was all over the place.
I've never seen
Yes,
Star Wars.
so you've said
I
I need to see it.
about 5 times
Oh,
this year.
I'm sorry.
That's all right. I just, you know.
I don't know what you're talking about.
But my point, my point was rather that movies that are big and expensive like that tend to be more popular because they are sort of giant spectacles, if nothing else. In some places that you wouldn't necessarily expect. For instance, if you listen to the rhetoric, everyone in Iran hates Americans, and that's simply not true. For instance, weirdly, one very popular movie in Iran for a long time was The Fast and Furious, which seems like that's such a
Still is.
weird movie, popular in Iran, but it is. It was. The thing about the Middle East, you learn pretty quickly, and I'm switching back to the West for just a second, is that, and really this is true in India as well, many places in Asia, is that they have a distinct difference between what is public and what is private. Private, it's no one else's business. So as long as like that doesn't get out to anybody else, no one cares. So even in the most conservative areas in the Middle East, where you see women wearing these basically like tent type things, where all you can see is like a little like bit of hide, or like completely covered up. Underneath that, they're wearing like yoga pants and t-shirts that look exactly like any other Western teenager. It's just that they're not allowed to look like that outside the home. When they go inside, it's their own business. And so there's a lot of stuff that's technically not allowed, but it happens in the home, and just kind of no one talks about it. The other thing that's kind of an interesting thing is that while we might think of these places as being very old school, it's like, taking a step back in time, that's really only the rural areas. A lot of these different places, when you get in the city, it's just like, oh, it's like a modern freaking city, Now, there are cultural differences, to be sure. But that being said, they're maybe not as great as we've been led to believe. For instance, the Jati or caste system is part of Hinduism. And basically, that's what we talked about earlier, is that it's the thing you're born into, it's your social class, your job, who you're allowed to marry, who you're allowed to be friends with, all that stuff all rolled into one. It's part of the Hindu faith. However, that being said, the Jati is more or less ignored in modern India. Now, that being said as well, in the rural areas, they still very much follow it. I'll never forget, I read a story about a year ago about this couple who got married against the wishes of both families. And basically, they had to flee their village for fear of being killed. So they ended up going somewhere else. I think they actually moved to Europe, where they lived their lives and lived for 30 years, had kids, everything else like that. Got homesick, decided to go back and visit their families, thinking, well, it's been 30 years. The thing must be gone by now. They get off the bus, their village, and they're immediately both killed.
What about your children?
The children weren't there. I mean, this was 30 years. Their kids were old. They were adults living in Europe. They didn't care about the Indians. It's just like, really? Yeah. To them,
What
it's
if they want to go back?
well, it seems like, oh, why would you want to do that? But keep in mind, it's their family. It's like disavowing every member of your family. I'm saying never seen. That's kind of hard to do that. Besides, you kind of convince yourself of certain things. Like, I'm sure it's fine now. And obviously it wasn't. The thing is that this sense of like family honor, the whole family beat them to 6. This is something that is a problem. There's also a rape problem, at least there was a number of years ago. I haven't seen anything about it recently because basically the news I wasn't losing all about election cycles, but it definitely is a conundrum, it's a problem. And part of that has to do with that women are often seen as needing to be protected, essentially. A woman's place is in the home in this culture, although that's not necessarily to the extent of what that sounds like. Culturally speaking, in a lot of these places, women are seen as having strengths in certain areas. In other areas, not so much. And a woman that's out by themselves is basically asking to be raped and murdered. So she has to be protected by another man. Otherwise, this is something that happens.
What happens more?
But both usually at the same time.
So you have, you would either be my dad or something.
Yeah.
What do you have another person like a girl?
That's not exactly. It's men. Now, that being said, this depends on where you are. It tends to be only in conservative areas, in areas that are more like liberal and Western. That's not as understandable. And that being said, this culture is reversing itself because society is against it as a general rule. This isn't like everyone in India is a bunch of rapists or anything. That's totally false. And that would be utterly offensive and wrong to say. Instead, this is a problem they have essentially because, let's be honest, it's not because people are conservative, it's an excuse to do terrible things and group mentality, which is a psychological condition that breaks out. It's nothing to do with their culture, if that makes any sense. Because that's just inane, it's stupid to say that. Rather, what's happened is you have situations of extreme poverty or situations where people essentially commit crimes and no one steps in to stop it. And then after the fact, we have these individuals who commit these really heinous acts of barbarity, put on trial, sentenced to death. There's these guys who were like, I think most of them in their late teens, who just committed this horrible act of violence against this young woman. He ended up being sentenced to death, and they were all crying like, why, what? And they were confused. It's like, what do you mean you're confused? What do you think was going to happen? The answer, they didn't think. Group mentality is a very, very scary thing. And in this particular instance, you have sort of a shift in culture, a painful shift. And the thing is, if you look at history, most cultures go through some sort of painful cultural shift as they merge into a post-industrial economy. It seems like that wouldn't be related, but it is. Consider the United States, for instance, where we were shifting from industrial to post-industrial. That's when the Ku Klux Klan was at their height of power. You know? So, it's best not to throw stones. Guess what I'm saying? Now, moving to Pakistan, one thing that's kind of unique about Pakistan is poetry remains one of the principal artistic forms. This is really no real surprise. Pakistan is tied to the Arab traditions of poetry that basically goes with Islam, and the Quran is a book of poems. And this brings me to the most probably famous work from this area of the world, 1001 Arabian Nights. Are you guys familiar with that at all?
Yeah, you talked about
You're
it.
probably familiar with one story, Aladdin. It was actually Chinese. But anyways, here's how the story goes if you're not familiar with it. Okay? A long time ago, there was a king named Shinar. And he was a good king. People loved him. He had a beautiful wife. He loved him immensely. What he didn't know is she actually loved his brother. And so attempted with the brother to kill and overthrow Shinar. Well, he was made aware of this plan, but not before his wife was killed when his brother escaped. And so, from that point on, he believed that no woman was trustworthy. He would never marry again. But, in order to be a king, he had to have a queen. And so, his advisors said, you have to get married, you don't have a choice. And so he said, well, if I get married, I will kill my wife on the very next morning. And so this is kind of a big statement. No one wants to marry a king. It's a king, but, right? Except for one woman, who happened to be the daughter of the king's chief advisor, the Grand Vizier. Her name was Scheherazade. And she actually loved him. She wanted to be with him and believed that he was a good man who had been hurt, and she was willing to put herself on the line to sort of save him. And her dad's like, no, absolutely not. I refuse to bless this marriage. And so for a while, it didn't happen. But eventually, as she continued on, convinced her and says, I've got a plan. And so eventually he agreed. The marriage is held. That night, as the couple goes back to the bedchamber, he's just sort of kind of sullen and just kind of not happy and brooding. And she says, Lord, would you like a bedtime story? And he's like, fine, go. The thing is, she was a phenomenal storyteller. And so she starts weaving this intricate story that has him on the edge of his seats. He just can't help but listen to her. He's completely enraptured by her voice. And she continues this on all night. And as the sun starts to set on the very next day, she says, I'm sorry, but I'm very tired. I'll have to continue this story later, because she ends it on a cliffhanger. And so he says, fine, but tomorrow you have to finish the story. So the next night, she starts another story that is so masterfully woven in with the first that he doesn't even realize it's a new story. And so she continues it again, all night, weaving this story of adventure and excitement, till again, day breaks, and she leaves it on a cliffhanger. Simon will learn off to the again for the day. Now this continues on for, wait for it, 1,001 nights. Right? That's a long time. So by the time she finally ends her tale, not only has she been going for a while, but they've been happily married for like 3 years. They have kids together. Everything's amazing. And then he realizes he actually loves this woman. He's been wrong. And they live happily ever after. So each of the stories is one of these stories. One is Aladdin, and the story of the genie. You have Ali Baba, and the story of the 40 thieves. You have, excuse me, stories of Sinbad the Sailor. All these classic tales that are part of a greater narrative. And let me tell you, some of the stories are pretty wild in terms of, like, you know, you think, oh, Aladdin, you know, it's like some are like, whoa, that's kind of like almost morbid humor. For instance, one of my favorites is the story of the Hunchback. And it goes like this. In the city of Istanbul, there was a couple who was very prosperous, and they believed thoroughly in giving back to their community. They were, again, penitent Muslims, and so they believed in Salat. And so each night they would find a beggar or a homeless person or someone who looked like they just could use a meal in a warm room, and invite them into their home and basically have dinner with them. And so they found this one individual who was stunted, very short, a person dressed in just outlandish clothing. This person's got to have a breath. So they invited him to their home, and basically he's hilarious. Like, he's telling jokes, they're laughing, they're having a wonderful evening. And believe it or not, for a small guy, the dude can eat. He's eating everything that the good lady of the house is putting on the table. Everything from the roast meats to the beds of rice to plates of fish. And as he's finishing one last piece of fish, a bone lodges itself in his throat and starts to choke. So the couple is like freaking out, like, we've got to try to save him. And they end up, like, you know, trying all these different things, but despite their best efforts, he dies. So as they're looking at him, they realize that they've seen him before. Not realizing this entire time, they've been entertaining the hunchbacked jester to the Sultan. A jester is basically a personal companion. The Sultan is the king, emperor, essentially, of the Ottoman Empire, which was the largest empire in the world at this time. So this is a guy who's got a lot of training. And the thing is, this Sultan was not a kind person. They were freaking out. They're like, he's going to punish us. This is going to be awful. We've got to do something to get out of this. So they take the body, weakened at burning style. They take this body and they go to a doctor, right? They knock on the door, leave the body on the doorstep, and just flee into the night. Now the thing is, this doctor was Jewish. You know, anything about Jews in the Middle East, they are not necessarily that approved of. Basically, the Middle East is pretty anti-Semitic. This being said, the Ottoman Empire was better than others, but there was still this prejudice. So as the doctor comes out, he's looking around. This is the middle of the night. He's like, who's knocking on my door? So he takes a step and trips over the body, both of them stumbling down the stairs. And he's like, oh my God, what? Oh my God, there's a guy here. Checks his pulse and sees he's dead. I've killed him. Oh my God. Looks at him. Oh my God. He starts freaking out. This is Sultan's personal gesture. I'm going to be punished. I got to be served up. Listen, about this time, the servant shows up. Like, oh my gosh, what's going on? Quiet, just help me. Like, we got to do something with the body. So they pick up the body, take him inside, take him to the stairs, up into the roof, and they're like, and they see that there is a chimney, right, to another person's house. They just look right down the chimney like, we saw nothing.
This story.
Inside the house, there was a Buddhist monk who was traveling from China. He was a foreigner, right? The thing with foreigners is even the ones that are well respected aren't really seen as members of society. So if something happens, they're kind of like not really given the benefit of the doubt, right? So he's sitting there, he's meditating, and a burglar drops in through his thing. So reacting without thinking, he just punches him. With his bare hands, he strikes him, and he falls dead on the ground. He's like, I killed him with my bare hands. What he recognizes is, I'm going to be punished. Oh my God, what am I going to do with this body? So he takes it and throws it out the window. And there's a homeless person outside in the alleyway who's trying to get comfortable. And this person just attacks him. So he's struggling with this guy. It's like, he starts calling, guards, help, I'm being attacked. So two city guards show up. And they're like, all right, now you do this man is dead. This is the jester. This man has killed him. We must take him before the magistrate for punishment. And he's protesting his innocence. He did nothing. He was being attacked. And so basically, the next day, when the trial's scheduled to happen, throughout the entire city, everyone is hearing, oh my gosh, the jester has been killed. So they're putting him in front of the head judge. It's like the head of all law in the entire empire. And he is not known for sending out light sentences. He's the kind of guy who sentences everything as harshly as possible. And not only this, but the Sultan himself is going to be watching the proceedings. So everyone turns out for the crowd. The courthouse is packed. As everyone in the city is turning out to see what happens. And so the trial goes on. It's pretty much like everyone expects. He's getting railroaded. And right as the judge is about to pronounce sentence, and he's about to say the damning words, the monk stands and says, Your Honor, I'm sorry, I'm the one who's guilty. And he tells the story how he was meditating, and this man jumped through the thing, and he was just so nervous, and please, mercy, and all this other thing. So there's like, okay, well then and about that point, the doctor says, no, it was my fault. He came to me for aid, and we tripped. It was an accident. I'm very sorry. Please. Okay, well, and then the couple said, no, it was our fault. He was eating with us and things like that. And about this time, they hear booming laughter. Everyone kind of freezes and looks up, and the Sultan is just losing. He's crying. He's laughing, so he's crying. And everyone's kind of like, what? Oh my God! Like, what is he gonna do? Because he's the Sultan. He can order everyone's deaths, right? He's got guards. And he says, don't you all see what's happened here? The jester is dead. All men die. But with his death, he is told his greatest and final joke.
That's hilarious. You hear it?
Sorry.
That's awesome. Oh my God, you gotta be a storyteller. You just gotta be like freaking filming it and just like, oh my God, that was good.
That story was so good. Say another story. Be like the girl with the bear.
That actually is one of my historical impersonations is a Turkish merchant who's a storyteller. So.
Oh my god.
Wait, was it actually?
Wait,
Yeah.
do you have like a voice to it? Or what? Do you have like a voice to
The
it?
Turks sound like we do.
Yeah.
I mean, the language is different clearly, but I don't speak it very good because no one would understand it.
Is there another?
To be honest, my knowledge of Turkish is like very, very limited. I pretty much know merhaba and events, which is really not very good.
Is this not China?
Yes! As is evident from, Chinese system.
Oh my gosh, that was so good.
Can you say
That was the
another
best.
one where we write? Story time.
Do a really good one, like
Story time.
Well, there's I'm trying to remember, there's the black horse, or the yellow horse, that one, I don't know if I know quite as well as that one. But that's the one I principally
did
tell.
you actually like
Have I read the whole thing?
yeah, just read it and then you
But you can actually
comprehended
find
it and you just said that out?
Yeah,
You just did that yourself?
yeah. There's a storytelling is
It's
a living,
impressible. It's
storytelling is a
impressive.
living thing. It's the more you do it, the more you get used to it, and the more you can kind of embellish different parts.
I'm kind of interested in this one.
I will say, well, there's a bunch of them. That's the thing. That's been one of them. But
Do your favorite one.
that was my favorite. Yeah, no, good morning. Sorry. I will say though that Mr. Terry in his English class has actually analyzed some of them before. For instance, they did I think it's actually the Metallic course into the story. I forget exactly how it translates. But the thing is it's pretty interesting as the whole thing goes. But like, for instance, one of the things I think is really kind of interesting is the story of Aladdin. There's actually two genies in the original story. There's a genie of the ring and there's a genie of the lamp. One thing we will do, since we just did that, I'm going to pause the recording because I don't want to have some crazy like loop error with YouTube. I'm going to show you guys Friend Like Me from Aladdin. That's